notes. While we have sort of a captive audience, I think there are a lot of seniors here especially, and I've seen a couple seniors who I know have not recommended their counselor on the Common App yet, so that needs to happen. So please do that as soon as possible, just a little reminder. Also, please be respectful. We ask that you put your phones away. You have been excused for this entire hour, so I know that you will be very kind and attentive to Mr. Brown, who has traveled all the way from East Lansing, and we are excited to welcome him to tell us all about Michigan State University.
Thank you all. Good morning. How are we doing? Good. Excellent. Well, just a quick introduction about me. My name is Ben Brown. I'm the assistant director at Michigan State. I've been working for the university for 15 years. I got my master's degree from MSU. I'm originally from a tiny nowhere town in Ohio, but I saw the light, came to Michigan to get my master's degree, fell in love with the institution and East Lansing area, and so I've stayed there ever since and raised my family there. I truly love Michigan State. I think it's an honor to work for the university. I really believe in everything that MSU does for our students and the changes that we make in students and then the changes our students make when they go out into the world. So I've seen some really impressive things that our students have done and are continuing to do out in all over the world. So I consider it an honor to work for Michigan State, and I consider it an honor to work with high school students as well. This is really what I enjoy doing. Michigan State is my paycheck, and so I love talking about Michigan State, but my passion is helping students figure out what the next step is after high school for them. I know it might not be Michigan State for everybody, but I want to help you figure that out, and I truly enjoy seeing students figure out what that next step is for them. So I consider it an honor to work with Troy High as well. Troy is one of the largest schools that we get students from at Michigan State, definitely top 3 students that attend from your high school. About 141 students from Troy High started at MSU last year. We certainly know we're popular with you, but the other thing we know is that your high school really prepares you for Michigan State. We know it is a good partnership and that what you're learning here and how you push yourself in this particular high school, it translates very well to success at MSU. So I do consider it an honor to work with your high school and all of you students as well. I'll talk today a little bit about Michigan State University just to give you kind of an overview, but I really want to focus on the application process as well. So I'm going to try to cover those 2 big areas, and I'll try to leave some time for questions at the end. Just real quick though, where are my seniors at? Just show of hands. Majority of you are seniors. Okay, excellent. Juniors? All right, I think that's probably the rest of you, right? Only juniors and seniors today? Any underclassmen? No? Okay, good. Not good, but you know what I mean. Anyhow, so juniors, I want you to really take to heart when I start talking about the application process. You're about 10 to 11 months out from that process right now. So seniors, that obviously means now is the time to be working on that application, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So let me introduce you to Michigan State University. This question usually gets a lot of hands as well. How many of you, for any reason whatsoever, have come to Michigan State? Majority of people. I'm sure you have friends. Again, 141 seniors last year, started on our campus in August this year. So I'm sure you have some friends. You've been up to campus. You've seen campus. For those of you who have not been able to make it up to our campus, it is a very large park-like setting for us. There are old-growth trees. The Red Cedar River cuts right through the center. Our buildings are spaced out to allow intentional green space between them. That is what we want. That's the aesthetic feel that we look for. That has been in our blueprint since 1855 to leave space for nature so that students can really enjoy that. Spreads our campus out over 5,200 acres. My brain doesn't work in acres, so Michigan State is about 1.5 miles east to west and about 2 miles north to south. So it's a big place. I think most people know Michigan State as a big university, but big doesn't always get a number attached to it. And when we do a head count on campus, we're at about 51,000 students this year. Makes us the nation's 7th largest institution. One thing that separates us from those other large institutions is that those places have satellite campuses that they start students at and eventually bring them to main campus. At Michigan State, all 51,000 students are right there in East Lansing with us. So it is a big community on campus. The majority of those 51,000 students are undergraduate students. So about 40,000 of that population is undergraduate students. Our undergraduate population, very much a traditional undergraduate population. So 18 to 23 years old, working on their first degree. I would argue probably 90% of them are directly out of high school coming into college for the first time. So this is very much your peer group, students just like yourself that have started at MSU. It's important to know that because that is the majority of our population, and that means it's also our main focus at Michigan State. Our faculty are trained and want to work with undergraduate students. The resources that we've developed to help students be successful are geared towards the undergraduate experience. The extracurricular activities and experiences that we have on campus are really geared towards making sure that undergraduate students are successful. And what that translates to is Michigan State is concerned about your success, and our faculty want to work with you, and the resources that we have are for you to be successful at MSU. So, big place. Part of the reason that we're so big this year is because of our incoming class from last year. So about 9,800 students started with us in the fall total. That is the largest incoming class that Michigan State has ever brought in. And I will be the first to confess it's a little bit bigger than what we were anticipating. We were really hoping more for like 9,600 because we like to keep the university at about 50,000. We don't want to go over that. And so it caused a little bit of issues this year, and I'm sure if you have some friends up there, they probably talk to you a little bit about the limited housing that we have available, and so we really want to safeguard against that next year. So we're looking this year to be a little bit more selective in our process. Probably, again, 95 to 9,600 students is what our overall target will be to bring in, just so we know that we can keep Michigan State at that 50,000 mark for us. But the one thing I want to let you know about that 9,800 students that came into Michigan State, not only is it the largest class we brought in, it's also the most diverse class that we've ever brought into the university. Diversity, certainly when we think about race and ethnicity, but also diversity when we look at the socio-economical background of our students that have come in. About 20% of the students were first-generation students, so the first ones in their family to ever attend a four-year institution. We had 49 states represented in that incoming class. We missed South Dakota this year for some reason, I don't know why. But about 130 different countries were represented in that incoming class as well. So we take a lot of pride in the diversity of the class that we brought in. And I do believe that's one of the biggest benefits. Oh, look, my QR code's there. We'll save that for the end, okay? And I'll tell you more about it. I will say that I think that is one of the biggest benefits of a place like Michigan State. With so many people on one campus, you're going to be able to make friends, you're going to be able to make connections. You will go into a classroom and you're going to see someone that looks a lot like you and be familiar, and they're going to share kind of the same common background as you. But you're going to sit in that classroom as well, and you're going to be challenged by people from all over the world that have opposing views as you. And they're going to challenge you to look at that material in a different light. And I really think that's the biggest benefit, and that's where education really gets started, is when you get to sit in a classroom and be challenged and supported in that very same classroom. So we're a big place, but with a big place like Michigan State comes big opportunities as well, most notably in the areas of study that you can go in. We have over 200 areas of study that students can work with. There's a list of them on that poster that you got handed out. I will say don't get too worked up looking for a specific name on there. More than likely, we have what you want to study. It just might be under a different name. And a great example of that is physical therapy. A lot of students will tell me that they're interested in physical therapy, but they don't see it on the list, and it is not on. We don't offer physical therapy as a major at Michigan State, but what we do offer is kinesiology. And kinesiology is the study of the human body in motion. About 90% of those students with a kinesiology degree go on to be physical therapists. So more than likely, there's something that we have that's available for you to study. And I'm sure in the room today, there's some of you that know exactly what you want to do. I think that's fantastic. We'll get you connected to an advisor, and then that way you can start on that career path. You'll graduate from state and go on and have an amazing career in that major that you were passionate about, even as a high school student. My guess is the majority of the room have a general idea of what you like to do. Maybe you know you like science. Maybe you even got it narrowed down to biology. and you know you would like biology, you're just not sure what that means and how that translates to a career, or maybe you like business, but you're not sure if it's marketing, accounting, finance that you're really interested in. And that's okay. You'll work with academic advisors in those areas. They're going to introduce you to the multiple majors within that area, and they'll get you on a focus. And just like the other student, you'll graduate in 4 years, get out in a career that you're passionate about. But my guess is there's at least one student in the room today that has absolutely no idea what you want to do, or maybe you have some crazy dreams that you haven't even told your family yet that this is what your real career passion is, because you think it's just so off the wall. We love those students at Michigan State. We want those students at Michigan State because there's so many options. We want to support that passionate idea that you have so that you can go out and find your career. About 18% of our students come in what we call exploratory. That is a positive spin on no preference or undecided. Those sound negative. Exploratory sounds like, oh, I'm exploring my options. Not that I don't know what I want to do, but I'm exploring them. So that's a positive spin on it. And those students get academic advisors just like everybody else. You'll start taking classes, figure out what a career path is, and just like everyone else, you'll get out in 4 years into a career that you're passionate about. So lots of options in the classroom to study, lots of majors available for students to study within. And most of our students will pick a major, maybe even double major, or pick up some minors along the way. Rarely have I met a student who is just majoring in one thing and that's it. So we encourage you to really explore all of the passions that you have when it comes to academics. Outside of the classroom, there's lots of ways that you can get involved with your academics outside of the classroom. A couple ones that I like to point out. Entrepreneurship's a big initiative at Michigan State. We have maker spaces spread all around campus for students to utilize. They're great spaces just for students to meet and kind of brainstorm together, but they also have 3D printers, bookbinding opportunities, blueprint printing that's available, and all of that's free for any student. So you can any student can walk into any of our maker spaces and utilize any of those particular pieces of resources. But we also have an entrepreneurship minor for students as well. And that's open to all students also. You don't just have to be in the College of Business to pick up an entrepreneurship minor, because we truly believe the next big business idea is out there, and we want to support it no matter what your major interest is. So you can pick up a minor in entrepreneurship, even if you're a chemistry major or an English major or a communications major, and definitely if you're a business major as well. Another big initiative on our campus is research. We are a Research One institution. What that ultimately means is we do a lot of research on our campus. When I hear research, I definitely think of the sciences, so lab coats and microscopes, and scientific research is a pretty big part of Michigan State. We're one of the few institutions in the country that have their own cyclotron, so we split atoms on our campus almost every day. The facility for rare isotope beams has just got up and running. We have about 700 international researchers interested in using the facility. This is where I have to confess I didn't do so great in physics, so I don't have a full understanding of what they do at the FRIB, but I know it has something to do with particle acceleration in black holes. So if you're into nuclear physics, it's definitely a big excitement for you. Scientific research in breast cancer detection and prevention. Scientific research in drought-tolerant beans is going on our campus as well to help feed the hungry of the world. But research isn't just for the sciences. Almost every department has research available. Our criminal justice department right now is researching cryptocurrency on the dark web. Theater department a few years back did research on costume design throughout the decades over a certain Shakespearean play and how it altered the understanding of that particular performance. So research is really available for any student in any department, and it's for undergraduate students. Remember, our main focus at Michigan State is the undergraduate experience. So our faculty that are doing the research want undergraduate students to help them with their research. A lot of big research universities, they have research available. It's typically more geared towards advanced degree-seeking students, like master's degrees and PhDs. But at Michigan State, it's our undergraduate students that are getting involved in that research. You certainly can go out to the website at undergraduate research at msu.edu to find out more. But once you're on campus, just make a connection with a faculty member and you can start your research. About 1 in 3 students graduate from Michigan State having conducted some kind of significant research at MSU. The last piece that I'll talk about is study abroad. We have one of the largest study abroad programs in the country. Over 275 programs, 80 different countries, all 7 continents that you can visit. So yes, we do go to Antarctica. If you really are just itching to get to Antarctica, we can make that happen for you. If there is something that you are passionate about, a topic that you're passionate about, more than likely there's a study abroad that will help cover that topic. If there's a place in the world that you want to visit because you've always thought it would be interesting to visit there, more than likely Michigan State has a study abroad that can get you to that part of the world as well. We really make it affordable for our students. About 1 semester abroad is equal to 1 semester on campus, and there are additional scholarships that students can apply for to help bring down that cost as well. So we really want our students to get out and visit the world. It is not just the traditional study abroad where maybe it's a faculty member taking you around the world, or maybe you get connected to an international institution. We also offer research opportunities internationally and internships internationally as well. And our Education Abroad office helps support students through that whole process. So academics is definitely a big benefit with the big size of Michigan State. Another big benefit is the community that you'll become a part of. The large Spartan community can be a little intimidating at times, and so we really want our students to get connected on our campus, and there's lots of ways to do that, most notably through our over 1,000 clubs and organizations that are available for students to become a part of. There's clubs and organizations connected to how you identify yourself, to religious beliefs, political beliefs, clubs and organizations connected to your academic passions and the hobbies that you might have. We have about 54 nationally recognized Greek organizations as well. So there is really a way to get involved in something at MSU. And when you start to get involved, the really big campus starts to shrink down and feels much smaller for you. So you definitely should get involved in clubs and organizations. I always recommend at a minimum of 2. Find something that's connected to your academics, but then find something that's a hobby and just kind of a stress relief for you as well. If you're an active person, there's a lot of way to continue that at Michigan State. We have 3 different intramural facilities on our campus, so think of those as recreation centers that are spread throughout the campus for students to utilize. Intramural sports for all different levels of competition. There's club sports as well. That's very similar to our varsity sports. They have uniforms you have to try out. There's coaches. There's practice. You go out and you play other colleges and other universities. So it's a very high level of competition if you're at that level, but maybe you're not necessarily a Division I athlete. But then, of course, we also have Division I athletics that you can try to be a part of, or you can be a spectator of. It's always fun to go to the Breslin Center or the football stadium and just be a part of that overall experience as well. But lots of ways to get out and get active. If you're not an active person right now, there's classes that you can take to help you get active. There's about 200 miles of sidewalks and bike paths that you can go out and be active. And we want our students to be active because our kinesiology department has done some research and found that students that are active for 20 minutes a week, not a day, 20 minutes a week actually have higher GPAs and a lower stress level. So we want you to get out and get active with all of that we have to offer. If you're into performing arts, we have 3 performing arts centers on our campus. The largest and probably best known as the home court for the men and women's basketball program is the Jack Breslin Center. So very large performances will come through the Breslin Center. The auditorium is our student performance center, so a lot of our student plays and performances are held there. But the crown jewel of our performing arts centers is the Wharton Center. The Wharton Center is our Broadway-ready stage that sits right in the heart of campus. Broadway-ready means that we don't have to change the set design or the blocking, so a performance can leave Broadway and it fits perfectly onto the Wharton Center stage. That means our students get Broadway-quality performances at the fraction of the cost right in their backyard. Big performances have come through recently. Hamilton, Lion King, Wicked have all been there. I have 2 small daughters, so I've been very blessed to see Frozen and Mean Girls over the past couple months. And I saw John Mulaney last month, so big comedians will come through as well. So it's a great way to get out and see some entertainment, and like I said, at a fraction of the cost that you would pay if you had to go to New York to watch it on Broadway. So that's one way to get involved. The communities on campus, in the residence hall system, we have one of the largest residence hall systems in the country. Because of its size, we've actually broken it up into 5 different neighborhoods, and each neighborhood at the heart of it is what we call the Engagement Center. And the Engagement Center is where we've taken the resources we know students need to thrive and survive and put it right at their doorstep. So there's a counseling center within the Engagement Center, nurse practitioner, there's tutoring, there's academic advising. All of that is in your Engagement Center right in your neighborhood. So if you're feeling like you got a head cold and you need to talk to somebody, there's a nurse practitioner right where you're living that you can go visit. You don't have to walk all the way to Olin to find that. if you're feeling just kind of overwhelmed or maybe a little homesick, there's a representative from the counseling office that you can talk to. And these are big transitions that we know students are going through. So that's why we put these resources right where they're living and so that they can get connected to them. We do ask our students to live on campus for the first 2 years. Again, our research just shows that students have a better completion of completing college in 4 years if they are close to those resources the first 2 years. So that's why we ask you to live on campus those first 2 years in particular. So that's Michigan State, kind of the big picture. I'll certainly leave time at the end for any kind of particular questions that you might have, but I want to focus for the next couple minutes on the application process, especially because a good number of you are seniors. And so just real quick, show of hands, seniors, how many of you have hit submit and finished the application? A couple of you. Okay. Now is really the time to turn in your application. And I'll talk a little bit about deadlines here in a second. But to find our application, we're on 2 different locations. We're on the Common App. If you are applying to multiple universities and they're all on the Common Application, obviously that's going to be the easiest way for you to apply. But if Michigan State is the only university that you're applying to on the Common Application, please use our Michigan State application. It's just at admissions.msu.edu. It's a little bit shorter for you. Quite honestly, we don't have a preference on how you apply, whether it's our application or the Common App. It's really ultimately about your convenience. So whatever is easiest for you, that's how we want you to apply to Michigan State. So like I said, now's really the time to apply. We go live August 1st because we are a member of Common App. So juniors, you can kind of keep that in your mind. But the students that I work with, my suggestion to you is mid-September to mid-October is really the window of when you should be turning your application in. The application itself, pretty simple, straightforward questions. The one piece I like to talk to students about is the essay. Before we joined Common App, we used to call this a personal statement. I much rather call it a personal statement, but because we're a member, we call it an essay. Because a personal statement really tells you more of what I'm looking for. It's a statement of who you are as a person. If you think about this application review process from my end, I'm sitting at my desk, I review your transcript, I see how well you did in the classes that you've chosen to take, I see what your home address is, maybe some clubs and activities you're a part of. I don't know anything else about you. And I'm assuming there's more to you than just those kind of basic pieces of information. And so this essay is your chance to tell me about those things that make you unique, struggles that you had to face and overcome, your background, your passions, whatever you might want to let me know that goes above and beyond just the classes that you've taken is your opportunity within that essay. So make sure it's a good representation of who you are as an individual. I will let you know there's 2 optional places where you can add additional information. So if COVID affected your learning or your family in any way, shape, or form, you can let us know that just through the optional box. And then there's also additional information, and that's a great place if you have a part-time job or if you are involved in sports or clubs and activities, you can let us know about that in that additional information place. So that finishes the application. You make sure your transcript is turned in, and then your job is done. I really encourage students to get that done by November 1st. That is our early action deadline and also maximum scholarship consideration. So as long as you have everything turned in by November 1, that guarantees that I will get a decision back to you on or before January 15th. I want you to focus on that phrase, on or before January 15th. We guarantee a decision by January 15th, but more than likely, it will come before that deadline. So as I read applications and the committee confirms them, they get the decisions out to the students. So we do try to get them out. You don't have to wait all the way until January 15th to get that decision. We just guarantee it by that point in time. I said November 1st. I know a lot of you probably committed that to memory, but I don't want you to think of November 1st as your deadline. I would rather have you think of it as October 15th, so within the next 2 weeks. The reason being, about 15,000 students, that's not an exaggeration, that's almost an exact number, 15,000 students hit submit in a 24-hour period on October 31st last year. So no matter how good your system is, when 15,000 people hit go at the same time, it slows everything down. And so those students had a really hard time getting access to their student account. It actually took about 7 to 10 days for them to have access to their account. And so you don't want to delay that process. So turn your applications in earlier to make sure that you're not having that problem. I would now argue also to turn your applications in this week. The reason being is it is free to apply to Michigan State this week. So when you're filling out your application, you can look and there's a fee waiver option available for you. The code is Spartan, just like our athletic teams, Spartan 1855, and you will not have to pay to apply to Michigan State. So even if some of you were on the fence about thinking whether you want to apply, this week is a great opportunity to just throw your hat in the ring to see kind of where you stand with Michigan State and get the application into MSU. For the juniors, this is the second year that we participated in this program. It's a statewide initiative. So my guess would be, as a junior, we're going to do it again in the first week of October. So as you're going through the process a year from now, keep that in your mind when you actually go to hit submit for Michigan State. My part then, once you get everything turned in, my job, first and foremost, is to make sure that you're academically admissible to Michigan State. So I want to make sure you're academically prepared. That's not just a GPA for us, it's the classes that you've taken to build the GPA as well. So we look at the strength of your curriculum and the curriculum that is provided to you by your high school. Again, we know that Troy is one of the best high schools in the state, so we know you have a really strong curriculum available to you. And so we want to make sure you're challenging yourself and being successful with those challenges that you have faced up to this point. So we look at the big picture, 9th through 11th grade and all of those grades. We look to see what classes you're taking in your senior year to ensure you're maintaining that level of commitment to your education. And then we also read that personal statement. It's a very important part, especially because we are now test optional. So that personal statement really helps give us some extra insight into who you are as an individual. So we are test optional. We will remain test optional until 2026. I mentioned the diversity of the class that we brought in this last year. We also brought, that class also has a diversity of learning styles, and that's something that we take a lot of pride in too. And so we are going to remain test optional for students, and that is exactly what it says it is. It is your option whether you want to submit a test score or not. We've redesigned our application review process to move forward without test scores at all. So if you do choose to submit a test score, it's additional information that we're just considering. So students often ask me, should I submit my test score? What I will say is, if you got that test score back and you looked at it and you felt really proud about it, you felt like it was a really great example of who you are as a learner and as an individual, by all means, send that test score into Michigan State. But if that test score came and you looked at it and you're like, ooh, that's not really me, or it's average, that's okay, you don't have to send it to MSU. So we are completely optional, and it's completely your option. We will move forward with your application. You will still be considered for scholarships, still be considered for the Honors College if you do not have a test score. And like I said, we've actually redesigned our whole review process to move forward without test scores. So we look at that big picture. I make my decision and try to get back to you, like I said, on or before January 15th. Those decisions will come to your account. So that is why it's so important to have your account available to you. So that you can get access to those decisions. Your account will also allow you, if you need to change your email or change your major or anything like that, you can do that on your student account as well. Typically, you have access to your account, again, as long as you're not applying on October 31st. If you use the homegrown application, about a half day or so until you have access. If you are using the Common App, it does take a day or two for the two systems to talk to each other. So if you hit submit on the Common application, it will say something, usually I think it's to the effect of you need to start or open up your MSU app, account, and you try to do that and it will say, well, you haven't applied yet. Don't reapply using our homegrown account. Just wait for Common App to let us know that you've applied. So like I said, about 2 days or so, you should have access to that account. But that account is where we'll let you know what our decisions are. 3 decisions, 2 of them are pretty obvious. The first one, congratulations, you're a Spartan, you're admitted, move forward with that process. You have until May 1 to commit to the university, but if you know Michigan State's where you want to go, you certainly can commit to us before May 1st. The second one is if you're not offered admissions to MSU. If that's the case, that doesn't mean MSU is off limits for the rest of your life. It just simply means that you're going to need to get started, maybe at a community college, and then look to transfer to Michigan State after a year or 2 at that community college. And there's a good number of students that do this for a variety of reasons, and we're always happy to help if that is a path that you choose to get to Michigan State. The third decision is the one that's a little confusing. It's what we call a withhold decision in our office, but ultimately we're waiting to make the final decision for you until we've gathered some additional information. So that additional information might be the first half of your senior year to see what kind of grades you've received. We might ask for another essay because we need to learn a little bit more about you. Whatever additional information we are requesting, we will let you know in your student account that this is the additional piece of information that we want. But that is also a decision that will come on or before January 15th. So if we say we need your senior year grades, that counts as an official decision by January 15th, but it also means your final decision will likely come after January 15th. Because if you think about senior year grades in particular, you're not really done with those until about January or February. They get on a transcript. That transcript gets to me. I do the review, and then goes to committee, and committee gets back to you. You're really looking about the end of March to hear back from us if that is the case. But again, we're doing this because we want to ensure you're going to be successful when you come to Michigan State. So we want to make sure you're on the right path and that you're doing well in your senior year. So that's why we do ask for that information. So that is kind of the big picture of Michigan State, the application process as well. At any point in time, if you would like to, you can click on the QR code just to let me know that you were here today, but it will also get you on our mailing list as well if you're not already on our mailing list. So you're welcome to do that, but I will also have about 10 minutes or so for any kind of questions that you might have about Michigan State. Yeah. Yep. Great question. So with letters of recommendation, they are not required for Michigan State. Just like test scores, it's an additional piece of information. If you choose to send it, you can. I will let you know my little insight about letters of recommendation. I sit on our scholarship selection team. I've read thousands and thousands of letters of recommendation for students, the majority of which basically say something to the effect of, this student was a delight in my class and will be wonderful on your college campus. It really is not an insightful letter of recommendation. So if you choose to send them, which again, they are not required, you do not have to send them to Michigan State, but if you choose to send them, make sure it's someone that can actually talk about who you are as a person and as a student. Maybe a teacher that's seen you struggle with a certain subject matter but overcome those struggles. Maybe a neighbor or an employer that can kind of talk about who you are as a person. But again, letters of recommendation are not required at MSU. Yep.
If you're doing dual enrollment, what is I guess the latest time you can stop that or start that in terms of applying and getting?
Yep. So if you're doing dual enrollment, there's not really continue with the process while you are in high school. So you can still take dual enrollment classes even in the spring semester of the community college or wherever we're doing dual enrollment. Just let us know that you're taking those classes. That's part of the transcripts, though, that you need to submit as well. So have your high school transcript submitted, and then if you're like at OCC doing the dual enrollment, have those OCC transcripts submitted to us also so that we can see how you performed in those dual enrollment classes. And then if you are taking classes in the spring, just let us know that you're taking those classes. Those probably will end sometime around May. Have those official transcripts sent to Michigan State. So then that way when you are at new student orientation and you sit down with your advisor, they're going to have the full list of the classes that you've already taken as dual enrollment, what they transfer into Michigan State as, so that they can better work with you and advise you on what classes you're going to be taking your first year at Michigan State. I will tell you, with dual enrollment and AP credit, I've seen students come in almost with their first year completed at Michigan State. Some students are even towards the middle of their sophomore year, depending on how many APs and how much dual enrollment that you've done. So you've really given yourself a great jump start on the overall process and getting towards graduation and completion. But the other thing I warn students, if you're doing dual enrollment, make sure you're really putting effort into those dual enrollment classes. Those are permanent grades that will stay with you forever. So if you are thinking about going into an advanced degree at some point in time and you slack off on your dual enrollment classes, even when you go to apply to a master's degree or PhD, they're still going to ask for your full college transcript, and those dual enrollment classes will be there. So make sure you're being successful and you're putting the effort in to complete those dual enrollment classes. The other thing I will say, if you're trying to decide what classes to take, I know your counseling office is very helpful with this process, but you can also go out to transfer.msu.edu and look up the classes there to see what they will transfer into Michigan State as. So it's really our transfer website, but as a dual enrollment student, it's the same classwork, so you can count that as well. Other questions? Yeah. Say again. Sure. Questions about credits towards graduation. Ballpark answer is 120, so that's what the majority of majors will require you to receive. We encourage students to take 15 credits every semester. Take 15 credits every semester for 8 semesters. That means you graduate in 4 years. I will tell you there's a couple of majors that have a little bit higher requirement. Engineering, for example, is about 130. I think accounting is about 130 as well. Education has a 5th year added, but you are doing master's level work and student teaching in that 5th year. So they have a little bit higher credit counts, but for the majority of our majors, the count is 120. So again, if you're bringing in some dual enrollment classes, you're going to be chiseling off towards that end goal of 120, or you are providing yourself some free space to pick up another major or even a couple minors as well. Yeah. For the direct med program. Okay. So the questions about the direct med program. There are 2 different programs at Michigan State. One is extremely competitive, and the other one is much more open. So the extremely competitive one is what we call Med Scholars. You need to be admitted to Michigan State first, and then you apply to Med Scholars. You go through that process. There's letters of recommendation and an interview that you have to do. And you can go out to Med Scholars on the website, and there's a full list of everything that you need to do in order to be considered for Med Scholars. We also have what we call the 3+4 program through Lyman Briggs. So Lyman Briggs is one of our residential colleges at Michigan State, and you can do 3 years at Lyman Briggs, and then as long as you're successful and you pass your MCAT and everything else, you will do 4 years in our orthopathic medicine. And I should say that Med Scholars is also a DO as well. So our human medicine, College of Human Medicine doesn't have anything that kind of bridges students in, but our orthopathic medicine does. So those are kind of the 2 big options available for, and again, none of them are true direct admits because you still have to have a successful undergraduate degree and you still have to get the MCATs, but they're pathways to really kind of ease you into that particular program. Yeah. Yeah, so with SAT scores, if you're choosing to submit them, as soon as you take the test, there's the option to send the scores to MSU. You certainly can do it at that point in time. If you are planning to take the October test and you're applying right now, just put on the application that you have a future test score coming, and then when you take the test, have it sent to Michigan State. But if it's on the application, and then we'll know ahead of time that we can expect those scores to come to MSU. I will also say if you take the SAT and you have the test scores sent to us after for free, and then you get the results back and you don't like them, when you go to apply to Michigan State, you can still check test optional, and the system will just not include them in your application process. So I know that's a fear that students have sometimes about taking the test and having the scores sent. It's your application will ultimately determine whether we see your test scores or not. Yeah. Yeah. So the questions about weighted versus unweighted GPA, it's actually both. So kind of the way our process is, I look at the big picture. So what did your high school say about you, and what is your GPA that you received from your high school? It helped me kind of put you in with your peer groups and where you fall within students within the high school. But then I'm also going to do what I call a recalculated GPA. So I look at the core classes that you've taken, which are English, mathematics, hard sciences, social sciences, and world languages. And I look to see how you perform just in those 5 core areas and give you a GPA based on that. It's not necessarily weighted. I do note if you're in advanced classes, like IB or AP classes for that, and give you a little bit of a bump. It's not like a full grade point. I think that's a myth that's out there somewhere. But I do note that if it is advanced, but that helps me know kind of that you're prepared with the core academics. You're also going to see that information again at Michigan State. No matter what your major is, taking a math class, a writing class, a hard science, a social science. So I want to make sure you're prepared in those subject areas as well. So I look big picture, but then also kind of take some classes out and give you a GPA on those classes too. Yeah. So the question is, do you have to do 5 years for all education majors? We want you to have a full year of teaching, of student teaching. So some students, if they're bringing in dual enrollment, if they're taking advanced classes and kind of moving quickly, can trim that down, but it's the full year of student teaching that we still want to make sure that you're having. Yeah. Yeah, great question. How do you apply for scholarships? All you need to do is apply by November 1st, and you're going to be fully considered for all the scholarships that we have available. So there's no extra application that you have to fill out or anything like that. It's just automatic consideration. That being said, our scholarships coming in the door are pretty competitive, and so it's really tough to get a scholarship coming into Michigan State at the very beginning, especially a big scholarship coming in at the very beginning. But once you're on campus, colleges and departments have scholarships available for current students, so don't stop hunting for scholarships once you get to Michigan State. The other thing I will say is there are some very unique scholarships that we have. We have about 5 scholarships that are extremely unique given situations. And so if you go out to our scholarship website, it says criteria specific. You can click on that. The one that I like to bring up, just kind of how unique it is that we have a donor by the last name of Sperber that has given us a scholarship for incoming students that have experienced the loss of a parent. So if you've experienced the loss of a parent, you can apply for this particular scholarship. That's not necessarily something we see in the admissions office, so that's why we ask you for that additional application. But I do encourage you to get out there and really start scholarship hunting. There's a lot of money out there to help you pay for college. My own personal example is that my mother's life insurance company had a $2,000 renewable scholarship for a dependent of the policy holder. So ultimately what I did was write a 400-word essay on why the policy holder was important to me, and they gave me $2,000 for 4 years. So what I did was write a 400-word essay on why I love my mom. I love my mom. That part was extremely easy. And they gave me $8,000 to go to college. So really get out there, put some effort into that scholarship hunting. You'll be surprised what you find that's available for you out there. Yeah. Yeah, so questions about how many hours. I never really look at the total amount of time that you've put in, but ultimately what I am looking for is involvement in your community. Involvement in your community looks very different depending on who you are as a student. So some students are really involved because they have 3 sports that they're a part of, or maybe they're a part of 2 bands and a performing arts program. Maybe you're really involved through doing volunteer work as part of your time that you're here in high school. But I also know there's students out there that you need to go home and maybe you need to help take care of somebody at home, or you need to go home and find a part-time job because that helps at home as well. That's still involvement in your community. So however you are involved, that's what I'm looking for. When I look at a student and I don't see any involvement, I get really concerned, like what are you doing with your life and your time that you're here in high school other than just studying? We want you to be a holistic, well-rounded person, so we definitely want you to get out and be involved. But that being said, I don't tally off how many hours of volunteer work you have to have or how many clubs you need to be a part of. I just want to make sure you're involved in some way, shape, or form. Maybe like 1 or 2 more questions. Yeah.
How do you apply to Lyman Briggs?
Yeah, great question. Lyman Briggs is one of our residential colleges, so I'll talk quickly about the application process for that because it's actually really simple. The 3 residential colleges, Lyman Briggs focuses on the natural sciences, so chemistry, biology, a lot of pre-med students interested in Lyman Briggs. James Madison is international relations, public policy, and constitutional law. A lot of pre-law students interested in James Madison. And then the third one is the residential college in the arts and humanities. Obviously deals with arts and humanities, but it's really about students who want to utilize arts and humanities for the common good and for social change. So these students most typically are going out and starting their own nonprofits or working for larger nonprofits. All 3 of these residential colleges, it's an academic program housed in the residence hall system, so everybody you're living with, studying the same thing that you're studying. A lot of your classes for your major are in the building that you live in. Faculty and advising offices are in that building as well. So if you hear 51,000 students and that seems a little intimidating, residential colleges are a great way to shrink down the overall size of Michigan State. It gives you an intentional community of support that you get to call your home base. Now, to apply for them, all you have to do is select them as your preferred major on your application. There's no additional application that you have to utilize. There's no additional criteria to be accepted into the program. As long as you're admissible to Michigan State and you selected one of those residential colleges as your preferred major, you're admissible to that program. They do, however, fill up. So there's a cap on how many students that they can take because of the living component that's part of the residential college itself. And they typically start to fill up about January or February. So again, it's important to get your application in now, especially if you're thinking about one of those residential colleges as a possible option for you. Yeah.
So, would non-green card holders or non-citizens be considered international students and will they live in Michigan?
Yep, that's a great question, particularly for your high school. So if you are not a U.S. citizen, but you've been attending Troy High School for 3 years, we're still going to look at you as an in-state student. However, you need to apply as an international student. First, my colleague, Alex Smith, will read your application, and then once he notices the number of years that you've been at Troy, your application will get flipped and you'll be paying in-state tuition instead of international fees. But just the way that our system is established, we need you to first and foremost go through the international process so that we can kind of check the boxes that we check in our own house internally. So, yeah. Yeah, so to apply as an international student, sorry, to apply as an international student, you just go out to the application just like you would Common App or a homegrown application, and as you're clicking through, it will ask you if you're a U.S. citizen or not. So that's kind of the international cost, or the international application process. International cost, if you haven't lived in the U.S. again or haven't attended a school for 3 years, it's about double the cost of the tuition that's down in the bottom left-hand corner. So that's a benefit that in-state students have. Taxpayers help fund a small portion of Michigan State. Because of that, in-state residents get a pretty significant discount on tuition, and so you'll notice the difference there. How am I doing on time? One more question, yeah. Yeah, I had mentioned it, so again, you can just click that QR code. That lets me know you attended the program today, and again, get you on our mailing list. So yeah. Yeah, so the question's about applying to your majors college. When you fill out the application, it is a preferred major that you're putting down. For most students, it's a pretty seamless process. You just get, once you're on campus, you get some classes done, and then you're accepted into your major. The ones that are a little more challenging, College of Business, College of Education, College of Nursing, College of Engineering, and College of Music. Those are more challenging for us. College of Music has a supplemental application that you need to fill out, plus auditions that you need to take part in. If you are thinking about College of Business, put that as your preferred major. They have started a direct admit program. It's a little strange, but ultimately you can either be directly admitted or about the end of your sophomore year, you'll be admitted to the College of Music. College of Engineering is admit when ready, so they have a checklist of classes that you have to take. And again, that's partly because some of you maybe have taken calculus, even BC, and so you're kind of getting a jump start on that math. So once you have everything checked off, you can be accepted into the College of Engineering. And then education, again, it's just building that GPA, make sure that you're ready for it. But those are the 5 major programs that really would require you to kind of go above and beyond. And again, those are about the end of your sophomore year that you'd be accepted into them.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We appreciate you being here today. If you do have follow-up questions, you can see your counselor, or of course, Ben Brown is available to you as our rep to ask any follow-up questions via email as well. If you need some real life experience, like what was it like on Michigan State's campus, our very own Mr. Ronconi, your principal, is a Michigan State graduate who would love to talk about Michigan State when you see him in the hallway, so you can ask him any questions that you have too.
Please make sure that you're taking all of your things with you when you leave. We're going to head to 4th hour. Your nearest and quickest exit might be behind you, so please make sure that you are using those exits as well. Thanks for being a good audience, everyone. Seniors, invite your counselors if you're using the common application. I can see a few of you now. I hope that you're in my portal when I get back to my office. Thanks, everybody.